Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Gemma Creagh and I'm chatting with writer-director Michael Kinirons and producer Alicia Ní Ghráinne as their film The Sparrow hits cinemas today. So first, let's have a listen to the trailer.
Your father tells me you were the last one to see Robbie. You want to tell me everything you remember?
So have we another officer in the ranks here?
Kevin? Not exactly. Should I be expecting the cards every other day now?
I can feel its little heartbeat. Do you feel it?
Yeah.
That thing starts squawking, you'll find it in the bin.
I swear half the time I think you want to get caught. It's no wonder he gives you such a hard time. You know why.
Robbie! Robbie!
Did Robbie ever say anything to you?
Robbie never told me anything.
Did I push him too hard? I thought that's what he wanted.
Stop. Don't say that, please. Don't you dare say that.
I know your dad could be hard on the two of you, but if you know something, you have to tell me.
Look, man, I'm going to be playing this day with you.
All of this bullshit is her fault. Manny!
I didn't do nothing.
Huh? Enough out of you.
This ends now. Where are you gonna go, Kevin?
Thank you guys so much for chatting with us.
Thank you.
Delighted.
Yeah, you must be so delighted. It's such a powerful film. There's so much to say. The performances are just so wonderful. I'm going to delve into the film in a little bit, but I'd love beforehand to talk about your careers and what brought you to this point, if that's okay. And I might start off with just saying how you guys began to collaborate.
Yeah, no, we met very many years ago, way back in 2007, I think, originally. And I wasn't acting or anything of the sort, but I could speak Irish. And Michael happened to be looking for an Irish speaking actress. I started working with him when I was about 23, 24, and I acted in that on Colleen Bawn. And then I moved to London, studied film. Michael studied film further in London also. But that was probably before that. And then I moved back home and we met up. We remained friends and then we ended up getting together and getting married in 2019. So that was the beginning of Tiger Darling, the company. I set it up for myself as a writer-director, making short films. And we moved to West Cork and Baltimore. And there we had it. We just thought this is the perfect place to make a feature. And we made it through Tiger Darling. And that's how we started. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. So like a meeting of minds, then a union of your entire lives and now a business included. So
Yes.
God, that's
The basis of every good relationship, yes. Work together all the time.
And no pressure.
There's no.
The creative life is notoriously easy.
Yeah. No, but it was great. Like it was just as Alicia said, like she had set up the company and to make this great short called The Pike, which had Sinead Cusack in it, and I'd sort of had this script in mind, and it was kind of that struggle. I'm sure lots of debut feature people you've talked to over the years, sort of that transition between making shorts and your first features. So, well, for most people, it's really hard. It's a really long process in Ireland, particularly over I'd say the generation that I'm in have found it particularly hard because, post 2008, just funding just fell off the map. And then, so it was that kind of, it was 5-6 years where there was a lot of, I would think of like myself and Andrew Legg and Ruth Meehan and that kind of generation who all had to sort of, were waiting like 10 years from having sort of made short, Screen Ireland shorts and all that. So it's that issue, but then also just finding the kind of script that you can make within the finance that you can get for an Irish film it's a big challenge. So, and my stuff that I was writing tended to be probably a little bit more expensive in some ways. Either was, period or whatever, bigger stuff. So it was just always that kind of finding that really clever, smart idea that you could shoot within a sort of smart, contained way. And finally, yeah, we had that around the time that Alicia had set up the company. And after she had ended up producing all her own shorts, I was like, look, you can do this. Why don't we just it was a little bit of take back control ourselves. We felt like, it's just so hard to get anything off the ground in Ireland, but also we just felt like we could do it ourselves. We had all the sort of experience and to kind of have a bit of creative control over what we do within this, so that we're not, and I've worked with great producers in Ireland, but it's just so many of the producers I worked with, particularly, were at that stage where they're moving up, or your McDara Kellers, your Conor Barrys, people like that, Katie Hollies, who were already made their first features as producers and were, looking on to bigger things. So it was just like, you felt like this was a relationship that myself and Alicia have just an incredible sensibility together. We have a very similar taste when it comes to things like film and art, and absolutely opposite taste in so many other things, which is makes for good dynamic, I think. But yeah, so that was kind of where it all came from.
That's very exciting. And I think it does speak to a bigger problem in that there's the way that the system is set up. There's and the pressure isn't on them. Like, a producer can only have a slate that's so big. What can you do? And how many brilliant creatives are coming up through the industry at the moment. But like that, there's gatekeepers, or there ends up being gatekeepers, and who can access the funding. So
Sure.
I think what you've done is actually I'm hearing about it more and more in terms of, like filmmakers partnering up and producing each other's films, because the skill set is so similar. And a lot of the time, if you're producing stuff, you kind of do produce it yourself if you're a filmmaker coming up through the ranks. God, and this was no tiny budget. It was 1.5 million funding from Screen Ireland, Creative Europe, BAI, or Coimisiún Meán, RT, Bankside. So, and then that's a lot of people to deal with as well, for notes and projects and deliverables and
Don't mention the B word. Don't.
Yeah, it's ongoing. But no, what I would say about that is it was a treat for a first-time producer in that vein, because there was no co-production. It was very uncomplicated, and it was a great place to really learn how to do that by yourself. Obviously, when I say do it by myself, I had an amazing team with me working with us along the way, like our accountant, Evelyn McLaughlin, and line producer, Sinead Barry. Without those people, they were there teaching me along the way, as well as collaborating and working with me. But as I say, it was the least complicated way forward in terms of experience, and I'm really happy about that. And part of that is due to our location. And part of convincing financiers that we could do this as part of the location. Everything was on our doorstep, and we had all the favors. The community of Baltimore also really helped us. Yeah.
Sorry, just jump in there as well. But also, we were very lucky that Leslie McCain was a really great supporter in Screen Ireland, and she definitely took a bit of it, not a punt on Target Ireland, but she was a great supporter of Alicia's and really saw her ability. And I think that was the kind of that level of kind of absolute kind of support was what really got us going, I think, to start
Well,
it
she
off.
believed in the script from day one, and it's a beautiful script, and Michael's one of Ireland's best writers, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Absolutely
And,
brilliant.
and no biases, but definitely more money the next time is deserved. That's
Trust me,
the
as my
talking
wife,
point.
she would never say that to me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. When you're getting the notes next time from her,
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be reminding her of this. But I'd love even to kind of take it back and talk about then maybe your independent careers and what led to this point. So Alicia, you were saying that you worked on your own shorts. You had one at the Cork Festival, so you were no kind of stranger to the practicalities of it. You did a master's in screenwriting
And directing. And going back to what Michael was saying earlier, it really came down to, it was really hard just to finance my own things, my own scripts. And I still want to very much direct and write more. I don't have any time anymore now, but here we are. but turning into producing was a means to take back that control and learn a new skill set for survival in an industry that's already very difficult. And I wouldn't take any of that back. I really enjoy it now.
Brilliant. And that's it. And I suppose actually seeing it from beginning to end, like I always think that it's the same with doing this. Like I find it so interesting because you learn so much about the different things. And even though it's all a different skill set, it does all play in and gives you a wider picture, which is so interesting. So this is your first feature coming out the other end. Actually, I'm just interested to seeing this particular side. Like we'll go into the nuts and bolts of the story. But actually, just while we're on this topic, in terms of selling it, then the distribution end, because that's something that's very different for features and shorts and then having deliverables, having festival screenings. How did you find that?
Well, look, I've made another film since, and I'm doing another one now. So, but every day is still new in terms of Sparrow years later. And distribution has come later than we would have liked. That's due to various different reasons. Michael might take over for me on that because he was discussing it earlier on with someone else. We're lucky to have had distribution support from Screen Ireland and working with Eclipse. They have pulled out a stellar campaign with a marketing company called Spinnaker, which is going very well as far as I can see. And we're just so excited by it. But yeah, this is very in the moment for me. I've never done it before. And yeah, every day's a new day.
Fascinating.
One of the factors you have to take in is like pandemic was a massive, just for everybody, I suppose. But like we were basically going into prep in March 2020 for this. And then obviously, certain lockdown happened. And then so that pushed us back about a year and a half overall. But we were kind of, in one sense, it's funny how things work out. Like we were really lucky to get people believing in the script, but as I say, we were able to get BAI, Commission of I think it's called now, whatever. But that was, I think, maybe one of two films that year we got. And with that, because of the structures of those, you have to have a broadcaster on board, and RT came on board, which is great. But we've learned a lot about the whole ramifications of UK and Ireland being one territory. I think this is something that no one really tells you about, first thing I would say is also, and I've been told this before, and I didn't listen because you don't, you just get so caught up in your own movie. But when it comes to distribution or any of this side of it, you have to make sure you got great stills and do your EPK stuff and all that kind of, it's just so important. And we've had to, we were lucky we've just probably got by with it, what we have. But it's we've had to do a lot of frame grabs and things like that. But it's really important, that side of it, because it's just in terms of deliverables and it's endless in terms of deliverables. And another piece of advice I would say is, make sure you understand all the things you're signing up for in terms of anything to sales agents and those kind of things with deliverables. Make sure you look at all those checklists, because like things like, we were contracted to deliver in like 4K, but we only finished in 2K at the time because that was what everyone was delivering. And then, that's 10 grand that, people are expecting us to pay, that sort of stuff. So it's all those little things that, it's an endless learning curve with that. But the other thing I would say is we were sort of damned by being quite successful in our financing. We were able to finance this totally out of Ireland, which is pretty rare, without having to do a co-production. Which means, again, we could do totally post in Ireland and work with Irish editors and which is really great, really important for me, for relationships I've built up. But with that is that a lot of, say, for example, the Irish distribution companies want to have a TV sale attached to there. So they want to be able to sell it to TV. That's part, because, they can't rely on, well, how many people are going to turn up to the cinema to see a first-time feature director in Ireland with, whatever. So, fair enough. But because we had that was difficult. And then Bankside, who had were on board from script stage, again, that's their remit is trying to get a UK distributor that then folds an Irish one into. So that there's a whole, it's just, you get kind of squeezed as an Irish film within that bigger UK Irish territory thing. And I think sort of that's happened, and just whatever happened between Eclipse weren't. I think they felt like it was they just missed an approach or something. So it was we approached them separately ourselves. Alicia did when we were kind of getting basically no's from the other distributors because of the TV pre-sale kind of side of it. So that's kind of what the delay was about. And then Eclipse came. We were like, yeah, we love the film. Absolutely happy to come aboard. So it was just like such a relief, because you put your heart and soul into these things, and to not just to sort of see it like sort of sitting there waiting for it to kind of come out, and particularly this film, it was designed to be made to watch in the cinema. It plays so much more intensely and emotionally in the cinema and on the big screen. So I'm just, from both of our sakes, we're just so appreciative and grateful that's happened now. So I think hopefully audiences will get out there and watch it in that context,
God, that's sort of shocking and terrifying to hear. But you were definitely in safe hands with Claire and Siobhan. Oh my God,
they're amazing.
The absolute best. Oh my God, and they've done amazing things for screenings as well. Like they're films that you're like, wow, they've been seen so much.
Yeah.
And actually, I want to talk to you about your writing. So this is your debut feature, and to get it funded to that level is amazing. But also you as a scriptwriter had done some pretty establishing things. Just talk to me about kind of making that transition and how that was for you.
Yeah, I suppose it's in my head. It's not a transition, I suppose, because it's like, how do you do? I taught myself how to be a writer because I wanted to be a director. Like loads of people, no one's going to give you a good script, but it was always once I kind of understood what a director does and what film really can be. When I was in college, it sort of that was the ambition, and I studied in the NFTS as a director, and but so I was writing shorts, and the shorts started getting selected, and then I started, I was script reading and doing all the script editing and all that sort of stuff, trying to just keep the wolf from the door, and the writing side seemed to start taking off a bit more, and particularly after, I suppose, I did this Australian film called Strangerland, which I was sort of commissioned to take on a script that was had been abandoned and by a director who had worked with a different writer originally, and then I took over the script and rewrote it completely.
And just interesting, how would one get that gig? Because it couldn't be further away physically.
Yeah. Well, I was working as I've worked as head of development for Fastnet Films and for Blinder Films over the years, and for a couple, and script edited for loads of Irish production companies. So I built up relationships there. But yeah, it was through Dara Keller, and now is Wild Atlantic. He sent me this script, and I think it was first to do notes. And I remember it's one of those scripts. I have to say this. It had an amazing first 10, 15 pages, and it lost its way a bit, I would say. And I wrote a very sort of impassioned set of notes, kind of going, this there's absolute potential in this first sort of setup sequence, but this is where it needs to go, blah blah. And they were like, oh, well, maybe you should take it on then. And yeah, reworked that script over a year and a half, and got it going.
And okay, so that obviously had some massive names attached, made big waves, was probably a great one for the IMDb star rating. Do you find the clout transitioned then to you being a director, to having worked at that level, or did you sort of have to forge your own path then to prove yourself in that field?
Yeah, I mean, look, it definitely helped me get an agent and all that side of things. I think that if I just wanted to be a writer, I think it would have been a lot easier for me. I made things hard for myself. I think being a writer director is weird in terms of what agents want, particularly now with stream. More and more big TVs are made. Agents want either writers or they want directors, and writer directors because it's a slower burn. You're less turnover. You're probably doing your own projects, all that sort of stuff. So you really need someone who's going to commit to you. So I didn't probably boost as much as I could have if I was just writing, maybe. But the thing for me was the experience of Strangerland was amazing, and I got to go over there for like 6 weeks and we did 2 weeks rehearsals, and I was in with all those, and it just reconfirmed that this is what I wanted to do, and all the things that I believed I could do about my own instincts and as a director were there. So from then on, it was just about like, how do I get my own first feature made? Because I can, I was really sort of put the fire up behind, shall we say.
And here it is. So
Yeah.
talk to me about the idea of Sparrow. When did you guys start developing it together? Is it in terms of, getting it through the development process? Are you both very involved in the notes? Would you have had a kind of a strong back and forth? Like, what do your different drafts look like?
Well, I suppose, yeah, Alicia can talk about Alicia and I collaborate massively on all creative, like, for each other. So yeah, Alicia would have been like the key script editor, development person on the project from pretty much the get-go. The idea was I had a kind of dream about a situation that happens on a boat, and I kind of knew who the characters, kind of the relationship between the characters, and that's all I had. And I had it for ages, just percolating, going, that's a really interesting situation. And then we moved down to Baltimore, and it was just while we were there, and Alicia was making the Pike around that time, 2016, 2017. I think 2017 is when I just went, oh, someone has to lie about the situation, what happened. And once I had that I knew what the film was. That was the key kind of thing that was like, I was always missing. I was like, I had some character ideas and all, but that was the dramatic situation that was like, okay, now there's a through line. So then I put it together, that first draft. We were pretty quickly. It was like, for me, very quickly, like 3-4 weeks, which is unbelievably quickly for me.
And actually, just to get that on the page, so you like even the practicalities of it. Is this something you'd beat it out? You'd write your first draft? Would you do a treatment?
Yeah, I do. I generally work treatment. Not. I mean, most of the time it's like, well, to get Screen Ireland funding, that was the first stage. It was like a first draft loan kind of thing. So we got a first draft loan on the basis of that treatment. And then, wrote the draft, sort of vomited out a draft really quickly. And it was very much written within Baltimore going, I could totally shoot this here. There's this amazing location, I'm going to use that. And there's this amazing location, I'm going to use that. And, it was like using what was around us to kind of focus the story. But yeah, and then I suppose that, in some ways I was quite, because I sort of vomited out so quickly, I sort of threw it away and didn't even think about it, put it into Screen Ireland. It took quite a bit of time for them to come back. I remember having a meeting with Leslie. I was like really embarrassed, going, "Oh God, she's going to think this is terrible." And
Leslie McCabe, we mentioned.
Do I really want to push? Do I really want to push for this? Like, oh God, I was really embarrassed by it. And she was like, "Oh, this is like one of the best first drafts I've ever read." And I was like, and it just makes you realize again, like, you're the worst judge of your own work. Like, just forget, as a writer, you have to step away from judgment of your own work completely. You have to go give yourself permission to write shit for a start, and then not think about it, let other people kind of come back to you, because I had no idea. And then when I got back, and then Alicia was on board at that stage, and we'd sort of production company was up and running, and then it was like just hone that over another 4 drafts.
And even in the interactions between the pair of you, what would, Alicia, your feedback be? Would you, stay kind of separated from the project until you got a draft? Would you be thinking, oh my God, we can't afford this at any point? What would your sort of, like, how would your notes process work?
My notes process would be nothing to do with production in my head at all. And at that point, I was so new to the whole experience anyway. I really just wanted the best script. So, and Michael and I are very together, and we do share a sensibility, but we're very good with critiquing one another as well. So the only thing that would be in my head is I'd be on a 5-mile walk and thinking, no, this can't happen, or that can't happen, or this is too this, there's too much of that, or there's too little. But as I said, we're harsh critics of one another, but we really service one another in that sense. We bring out the best in one another's work, I think. And he and my producing also.
But I think also we approach script and story in a slightly different way, which is really, or from different angles at the same thing.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
Alicia's very interesting. She's very much more character based, under the skin of the character. And I'm very
Structure.
structure,
Monster.
and not utterly, but I do have that kind of sensibility where I'm outside in and she's more inside out. So that she really helps my blind spots. And then for her work, I hopefully help her blind spots as well. Is that so she's constantly pushing, going, yeah, but really thinking through those little character moments and things like this, which are the psychology, and which is incredibly helpful to have. So yeah, I think that's one of the great things about how we work well together, is we're aligned sensibility, but we actually come at the sensibility from totally opposite angles at it. So it's quite complementary in that way,
Yeah. That's a better answer than mine.
What was yours? I'm so interested.
Well, that is it,
Yeah.
like that's it. And it can be very frustrating when I come to Michael with an idea of my own, even, and just say it's totally because mine's totally character based. There's no structure, there's no specificity on it. I like to kind of dream, or almost, before I solidify everything, and he puts the reins on me too. So yeah, it all works. Yeah.
Would you find that creatively you'd both be drawn to similar themes, or would one be more aligned with the other? Say this is very much so about that sort of toxic masculinity, that unhealthy relationships within families, that like, even I mean that father figure, you kind of want to hate him, but he's a victim himself that you see. And would you find that you both have things that you want to explore through your work separately, and that they come together in that core value way?
I would, but in different mediums, not in film. I'm more drawn to jokes and comedy, but yeah, absolutely similar themes. That's kind of a difficult question, but yeah.
Yeah, I think probably, yeah, I'm definitely more, I tend to swim in that kind of darker psychological noir thrillery kind of mystery world. Yeah, so I think, yeah, Alicia has a more comedy sort of side to her that I wouldn't have
Just
so
for
much.
screen. Just for screen.
I mean, obviously I'm hilarious in real life.
No, I mean just for screenwriting.
Yeah.
But with other mediums, I do like to explore those darker depths. It's just not in me for screen. I'm not attracted to it. Yeah.
That's very interesting. But I suppose it just speaks to your language as a creative individually. And it's lovely how those very different perspectives kind of build on things, and you can question your work and have that natural go-to person with different sensibilities. I'm just wondering, was there a different version of this script starting out? You were saying that it kind of came to you from an incident, Michael. Was there, say, an earlier draft of the script where something very different happened, or that might have looked different in some noticeable way?
No, I think the main thing was the ending. The ending changed. That was the hardest thing, to just kind of really focus down the ending in terms of what it was very much always was this kind of I was always drawn to that, like lots of people, Catcher in the Rye was a very important book to me growing up, and that kind of character who's a lost kind of teenager character. And I remember watching, films like, there's this amazing film, called LIE, that I saw when I was in my early 20s, and it's been a small little indie American movie. And just those kind of, just interesting. So I was trying to, I knew the kind of the style and the sensibility of it that I always wanted. And then it was just kind of focusing down on what the ending had to be. And actually, one of the things I should say is that was really helpful. Well, Leslie was very helpful with the ending as well, but in terms of pushing us to really kind of, she felt maybe more in the actual shoot is that, but to really nail the emotion of the ending. But I did a program called Equinox, which I really recommend. It's one of those European script development programs. And Equinox is particularly good because it's there's a lot of programs out there for really sort of, you're just starting out, and and that's and there's loads of place for that. But this was for, you need at least a third draft. You need to be pretty, you need to have done something, made a few shorts, at least have some sort of a bit behind you. And it's just you work with 5 or 6 incredible advisors, and they're like, but brilliant people, like really experienced people. Like, that last one out was Marcus Bernstein, who was like Walter Salas's writer. He did like Central Station, and it's like Oscar nominated. And Martin who wrote Rent, amazing playwright, American playwright, who wrote Rent. Sorry, his name is
Martin Sherman.
Martin Sherman. So you have people like this who are like just brilliant, amazing dramaturgs and novelists and people like that coming at you, and they just focus on your project. It's not like group projects where you work with each other, which I've done some things like that before. So you just get this really focused, what's working in the script, what's not, get some perspective on it. And that really helped me to hone down that the ending had to be father and son. That's what it was really about, really. And from that, kind of everything else then realigned a little bit once I kind of knew that. But so that was kind of, but the core of it was always pretty much there, I think.
The core of it was there for sure. What I would say about Equinox, not that we're selling Equinox or anything, but just to say that going back to that producer-director relationship as well, on that course, when the writers are figuring everything out, they go away for 4 days. I mean, the producer isn't even allowed to know where the hotel, you're not supposed to be around one another at all. And then the producer comes in for the last 2 days and sits in front of all the advisors with the writer, so that the writer's so supported by, everybody else, and you confront the script in that way. I just think it's really interesting. We've done it twice now with 2 different projects, and I would find it difficult to kind of really finalize things again with another script that we'd be going out for production funding with production funding, without exhausting that possibility of doing Equinox again. Just to say, in terms of how the ending, this is the beautiful thing about production, is that Michael's always writing and I'm always editing and we're always working, and the ending is different to what's on the page. That's the one thing that did change. Maybe subtly, Michael, but it wasn't written on the page in the way it is now. That came from Michael. I can see Michael thinking back to.
Yeah. But no, it's literally the final 30 seconds. Yeah, it's the final beat.
Yeah, but that came from a collaboration between ourselves, but Leslie McKim and also Bankside, our sales agents. So watching the dailies, looking at the edits, and being in the edit and seeing what we had and what we didn't have, and really thinking about where could these characters go. So yeah, so that's it's always exciting and it's ever changing is all I'm saying on that one. Yeah.
And I like, this is so ambiguous, and if people are listening to this before they see the film, they'll be like, what? But and I don't even kind of want to like say too many things that even give away what the tone is, because right now it is ambiguous. But like, dear God, I was kind of grateful of that ending. Like,
right.
Yeah, I think what I suppose the thing with on the page is that you can evoke something with language that you hope gets the emotion that then, but it's not on screen, because it's not that you're cheating with the writing, but you're getting a tone or something or an emotion across with the writing that. And just when we got there, well, I just think as Leslie was all the time going, is that ending doing enough? Anyway, she always felt, because I felt it wanted to be pared back and not, but being totally ambiguous, I wanted to be restrained, and because I feel like I felt like the emotion leading up to that is quite, there's a few intense scenes, and I wanted to be unspoken but clear and let the performances kind of speak the emotions. But it was missing this emotional resolution, catharsis moment, and that was very So we did a little reshoot, and it was funny because it was I thought I was thinking about what endings what was I trying to get at? And I remember the ending of one of my favorite films is Antonioni's L'Avventura, and there's this amazing ending in L'Avventura, which is relationship drama, but it's Monica Vitti putting her hand on this guy's shoulder who's done, who's kind of betrayed her the night before at a party, and it's just this devastating emotional ending. It was just a tiny moment, and
no spoilers, Michael.
Actually getting that. Sorry, said it.
I said no spoilers, Michael.
No spoilers, no, but I mean, like, yeah, getting that, finding those kind of little moments that speak volumes in that's the beauty of cinema, I think, and that's so. There was certainly an element of, that's what it was missing. And once we got that, all the other things that you're hoping there in the film, that there is, this level of, you want hope and you want catharsis and you want an emotional kind of outpouring in the ending. I think, and it seems like that happens now.
And the grief, and there's the pain, and there's societal pressure. Like it's a beautiful sort of quiet balance the whole way through. But talk to me actually about casting, because again, like so much of this, it's such a young cast across the board. Like that chemistry, that unspoken chemistry, the like that kind of integration of society in there. Like, talk to me about like finding the right people and what's your process there?
Yeah, it's I suppose one thing to talk about the cast first and foremost is, obviously you get into a casting process once you get financed, but before you get greenlit and get financed, it's most of the times you're trying to bridge a gap financially to make the film work, to get the film in the can, and to, Screen Ireland can only give so much and blah. So there's always this pressure to find, someone like some A-list caster, who's going to somehow come onto your movie, and then you can be able to get MGs from sales agent, distribution, and blah 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 blah. And it's, even for our small movie, that was such a pressure for us. It was such a pressure, and it was really made it really tricky, because it was at times you're like going, you lose control of it. In terms of, it's like suddenly you're going to CAA and they're throwing out these names to you of like most random people, like you're going, oh,
John
maybe
C. Reilly. He's due a drama.
Even like the dude from Prison Break and stuff, and you're going, how is he, have they looked at the spec? He's
got his abs out in those really emotional moments, like
most random stuff, and it's really disconcerting when you're just as a piggy in your first film. You're going, how is this possible? But luckily, in some ways, pandemic was very lucky for us. It didn't seem at the time, it was really devastating. But so first thing to say is that we found Ollie really quick. So Ollie West, who plays the lead, Gavin, we found him really early on in the process. He's like the second kid we saw. So, and I'm trying to remember, had we even got a casting director at that stage, or did we do that ourselves? So we brought on Emma Gunnery, who's brilliant casting director. I'm pretty sure we did that initial kind of casting ourselves. Maybe Emma was involved. I can't remember. Or Emma organized it.
Yeah.
But we saw Ollie.
But just to give the year, Michael, in relation to Ollie's age now, and when we were filming, like he was 15 at the time. 15. And now
he was 15 at the time.
19.
And I saw, sorry.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to give context there for how things change. So
that was the end of 2019, I think, right? And so Ollie, and it was just like this 15, he'd never been on screen before. He'd been in a one-man play in Inverted Commas when he was 11, playing Hamnet, which kind of toured around the place. And so, and his parents are theatre makers. So Michael West, writer, and Annie Ryan, theatre director. So he has, he's grown up amongst the actors, and he's got it in his blood, kind of thing. And I was just
people
amazed
can
by
age.
he's one of those.
That's like that's a real worrying time. People can really age. Like that age, sometimes they go through that growth spurt and they look like they're 28.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah. Like,
well, compared to what he looked like at 15, that was what you see on screen is actually a huge growth spurt. Like you have to rethink it in your head. I mean, I imagine for Michael directing it, you have to like totally reimagine that Kevin character in a different way. Yeah,
he was written as a younger kid than he is in the film now, in terms of, and that boyishness and that kind of I was thinking, like, you're kind of I don't know, like your River Phoenix and Stand By Me, or you know, I mean, that kind of just really amazing, you know, those kind of kids, but still very much boy teenager rather than or young man teenager, I suppose. But what with Ollie had is just had this instinctive ability. He knew what to do with his eyes. He had this presence on camera, and I think there's a little bit of some people just have that thing, you know. Some people the camera really loves, and some people have this comfort in front of the camera. But the pandemic happened. We had to obviously pause, and then it was this whole, yeah, God, has he aged out? All this sort of stuff, and you're worrying about it. But what that did was we just said, look, let's stick with Ollie, you know, let's really sort of, you know, back him and support him, because he lived with this script for a year and a half, you know, although, you know, not every day, but it's percolating in his mind for a year. And to be honest, he was probably too young at 15 to carry the emotional weight of the film. He wouldn't have really understood it. And by the time he got to make the film, he did. And because he'd lived with it. And so I think that all comes out in his performance, that he was able to sort of bring all that in his kind of, you know, in cells where sort of all that work had been done. And I'd been sending him music and little bits, and he'd be drawing me doodles and stuff. And every so often, and we just kept in touch. And there was no like, look, this is definitely going to happen. But, you know, but it was like, look, if we're going to get it off the ground, you're going to do it. So it was that commitment was made. And then, yeah, so it was great. And then he turned out brilliant in it. But it was always it's a huge risk, you know, because he'd never been on anything in terms of film before. And then obviously Emma Connery came on board, and she was great. So we got Éanna. Éanna did normal audition process. He was just coming out of Lure, and it was like, blew our mind. He was like, this kid's, as evident from what he's done since, you know, he's just, I mean, I think I always kind of think of him as a Brendan Gleeson type, in terms of he's got that range, in terms of he's a leading man, he can do character actor, he can play dark, he can play light, he literally can do it all. And it's just such a shame that he's such an uncharismatic, horrible human being behind it all. You know, that's the real annoying thing. So he's been great. And then David O'Hara was the kind of the Larry character was can we get someone that will not please the sales agents, or, you know what I mean, but that will help try to get the finance.
Some good names attached to his IMDb profile, definitely, that he's worked with some reputable things. But yet this is kind of meaty enough, I'm sure. Like this, I mean, his role especially was probably the most, meatiest for the actor. You know, like there's edge to everybody else in it. Well, definitely the men, like there's just that kind of edge, and that's the point. But like his has the biggest arc and the kind of that most complex side, and it's very interesting, like a very interesting kind of character and familiar character to watch as well. Unfortunately,
I think that was always the challenge, is how do you make that character, which on one level could feel anachronistic, and then particularly in an Irish context, you know, how many Irish films are about fathers and sons and stuff, you know. But I felt confident enough that there was a sort of a Greek tragedy quality to the film, that they were kind of archetypical characters in one sense. And what else was I going to say? It's just lost my train of thought there. I was going to say, but I was going to say one. It's an interesting one from a screenwriting point of view, because people always talk about arcs and protagonists and blah blah blah. But like this is a perfect example of a film that, at some level, the antagonist has the protagonist's arc. You know what I mean? He has the absolutely biggest arc in terms of internal change. Yet the film works, I think, despite, you know what I mean. So these kind of people who tell you there's only one way to write a script and all the rest, just let them know that they're in the clue what they're talking about. But so that I think absolutely was great to be able to get that role. And then with David, it was so, like, David's a unique guy. And I remember seeing Braveheart when a load of my friends were in the FCA and went down, and we're down in Braveheart. And I remember hearing about the guy at that stage. And I just think he's such an icon of Irish cinema. And I feel really proud that it's sort of, Sparrow is kind of in a lineage somehow with him, you know. He's a really interesting and great guy, you know.
And a great family member of ours forever.
Yeah,
really good
yeah,
friend.
yeah.
Talk a lot. Yeah.
He calls regularly, and yeah, complained about Scotland's football team at the moment, but
And tell me about the shoot though, like everybody working together on set. Like Baltimore is that bit more of a remote location, so you're probably a little bit
Mm.
more in your pockets than you would be if you were in Wicklow. What was how many days was it? What was like so much of it is outside and on water? Was that like
Mm.
Yeah, it was the biggest challenge. Like, when we were talking about market money for cast and all that earlier, we were flitting between 1.5 and 1.8 at all times, and we decided if we're going to make it, let's make it for 1.5 because that's all we can afford of Irish money without having to have bankable cast and that kind of, you know what I'm saying? So we just felt, sorry, Michael, I've lost my train of thought now. What's going on with us today?
No, well, I was one thing I was going to say is that we were lucky because of the pandemic that we got BAI because we wouldn't have been able to make this film the way
Oh,
we did
water.
without BAI. I'm hugely thankful to them. They were the one who closed the gap. Otherwise, we would have had to do a co-production, which again brings all this other complication, but also the budget would have had to go up, and you would have had to find additional. You're looking for, I don't know, Colin Farrell or whatever. It's that kind of thing. It's like random A-list star. So
But the water shoots
that was
proved the most
the water shoots.
difficult
Yeah.
to achieve. And thanks to Sinead Barry, again, I mentioned her name, line producer, and the team at large, everybody, and the stunts and the favors we got on the hero boats. For every boat that you're putting on screen, there's four around that boat. And choppy weather and difficulties with conditions. And it was very challenging in that sense, but there was somehow this smoothness over the whole shoot because I don't know, it felt like people were sharing our dream with us or something. Everybody was just, that was their dream too. And everybody pulled out all the stops and the locale did also. It just felt bolstered by support and love and commitment.
But exactly, like the community are amazing, and this is the thing we tried to do. We tried to foster a family atmosphere down there. As I say, like so many of the locations were within 10 minutes walk of our house, which we thought was going to be a really smart idea to have everything. We needed everything to be efficient and not be traveling all over the place. Didn't quite factor in how everyone in the crew then knew exactly where you lived and could turn up at any point during the day or night. Looking for answer questions and popping in for cups of tea, but that it was just Alicia did this incredible job, and Sinead and the production crew, Donal and those guys just created this atmosphere where I think this is the other thing that people don't understand. One of the great things about Irish crews is that they spend an awful lot of time working on these big American things where you could have our production designer Martin Golden came off. What was the big TV series they're shooting in Limerick before that? Apple thing.
oh,
Sorry,
Foundation, was it?
Foundation. Yeah. I know. But he's like, I'm just a cog in a wheel there. You know what I mean? In terms of, and I'm really important cog in the wheel. But he was like, he lives in West Cork, and he was like, this is so personal to him to be able to do something where he was like really felt like I'm bringing something myself to the film, my own experience, and all the ADs were like, this is what we want to do. Like we care about Irish cinema so much. We care about Irish filmmakers. We want to work on this stuff that's meaningful. And so everyone committed so much of that. And I think also Alicia did a brilliant thing where we got the catering was phenomenal. Like West Cork food is particularly fantastic, but
Infamously.
I think what we're saying, we're just going, had their minds for the food they're getting.
Best cheese in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was just breakfast was different. Everyone, brilliant catering. I think it was Diva Catering, their names are. But the vibe was like we had seasoned staffers and grips coming up to us who were like, I've been in film for 30 years and this is my favorite shoot I've ever been on. This is the absolute, like, everyone, because also everyone came down and lived down there and spent the weekends down there and went out the weekends and tore it up and then were like worked really hard, and it was a very special, very, very, very special. And we hope that was our thought, and hopefully this will translate into the screen, like the love that went into it, So yeah, and
I will say
the community.
nobody tore it up. They usually went home whenever they could.
They tore
Well, that's
Some
what
of
they
them
said
tore
to
it.
you, Alicia.
The younger ones tore it up. Exactly. Yeah. She
Michael,
wasn't allowed to any
Michael's
of the
buying
parties.
pints with the card behind your back then.
I
Yeah.
wasn't
She
invited.
wasn't allowed to, she wasn't invited to any of the parties. Yeah, yeah. There was definitely a certain level of tearing it up.
Boss.
Yeah.
Right in the paychecks. No, but that sounds like it sounds wonderful and it sounds very hospitable. So would you like credit that to like that's your hometown, Alicia? You've found all these vendors, you know the best people to work with from being down there, or again, was it sort of a happy accident by having access to word of mouth?
Yeah, I'd put it down to the excitement of the community, and I think if I can say, I think on their behalf, if they don't mind, was sure whatever. I think it came at a really great time after the pandemic in terms of injecting those small businesses again with life and a little more finance after a very tough shutdown. So the film was a little bit of a blessing as well as it was fun and exciting, and it was showing off the town as well and showing off West Cork, we hope, in the best way possible. For me, I'm very proud of that, at least, from a tourism point of view. And yeah, I think we saw it in its best light, except that there was no sunshine for the entire shoot. Outside of that.
Yeah, no, but I think that's it. We were living down there for 6 years before we shot it there, so we knew we built up a lot of relationships and goodwill, and we're involved in the community. So that I think that made for it would be difficult to sort of try and recreate that in terms of there's a lot more shot there in the last while since then, but like things like Bodkin and things like that wouldn't be getting the same sort of inside track that we were able to get. Like get the sailing company, the sailing club gave us their premises for the production office, and those are the things that are really difficult in West Cork, where office space and accommodation is just that's the accommodation. You think you're being really smart by making a film in the regions, but height of season, everyone wants to be down there. The holiday homes are at a premium. It's that per diems, all those things you don't think of really eat into your budget as well. So you have to be really smart about that. And thankfully, hopefully, there was a regional uplift, but of course Cork wasn't involved in it, which is another day's story. So that's a sore subject.
I think they're the producers. I saw that Spy and Ardon, they're lobbying the Oireachtas now on our behalf, because I'd be from Cork. Like it's great to see stuff in the regions, and I think it's also key to training up crew in those areas and to really
Massive.
to really also showcase how like West Cork is insanely beautiful. Like it is just
like
one of the most.
West Cork and Kerry should have their own rap fund, whatever the equivalent of. It's obvious, and then Cork City, it's so perfect for filming down there. They just need a little bit more infrastructure, and as you say, the crew, because there's some insane HODs who live down in West Cork. Just I'd love to work down there, but it's the lower kind of second, third level crew that you need to build up.
But tell me about basically the edit then. So you're on location, you're getting all your bits and bobs. Would you watch the rushes together every single night? Would you kind of go back the weekend and go through them all? What would be the process then of getting it into post-production and through across the line?
Oh, did we watch? I certainly tried not to watch anything as little as possible. I think most of the time for me it was like you're just trying to catch up on sleep, and a lot of times it was really important to me to have 5 weeks. It was really important. I just went, I can't make this film for less than 5 weeks because of particularly the water and the kind of challenges that would have happened with that, and also the
water, young people and animals. So
yeah,
you didn't make things.
Yeah, so we put it all in there. Yeah. So and then also just trying to make something that's beautiful and has a bit of that's not shit bollock scramble the entire time, and that's the problem trying to make a first feature. And I think we ended up having to cut. We went down to 4 weeks and 2 days. I think eventually 2.5, and then we kind of clawed back 2 days on a reshoot. So in terms of, I wasn't watching anything really. It was just get back, get some sleep, and I think at night I was. doing shot lists and stuff like that. Again, you think there's, I mean, one sense, there's great things about being married to your producer, unbelievably. But the downsides is that you do not escape production. You're literally in production. You're in the I mean, it's really tricky. The house is production. So you have to, and that's the one thing I learned. And those being able to separate yourself as a director and give yourself the time you need to do the things, which you can only really start doing as you get closer into prep, which is like, the work, which is the shot listing. And, you have all the dreams on this, but the real nugget of how do I communicate this with the crew? And I'm not a big storyboard or anything like that. So I do little drawings and stuff like that and map out things, but it's just until you kind of know exactly what specifics of locations and things like that as well, and getting into your conversation with your DP. So there's a lot of that. And in terms of the edit, then John Waters edited it, who's a wonderful friend and has edited loads of great Irish movies. So we partnered with Egg post-production. Egg came on board and they've been amazing. We really love the guys. And I think it was basically, it was just finished the shoot and then I looked at everything, took a couple of days off. It's just a few days, I can't remember. And discovered the assembly editor was my cousin. I was marrying my cousin, which was really interesting. I hadn't met her before. It's Veronica Kaminsky. And then, I was going up to Egg and then just powering into the edit. Really, it was really...
and what I'm interested in is your creative collaboration. So, Alicia, would you be giving notes the entire time? Would you save your eyes for being fresh eyes? Would you sit in those final edits together? Would you be kind of like managing deliverables? Like, what would that kind of partnership look like?
As I worked with my last director on the last movie, it's like pretty full on. I'm watching every upload every night and giving notes to Michael directly or to both the writer or to both him and the editor for the next morning or whatever. Yeah. So really close. And then with the actual shoot, I was watching dailies every day because the financiers were watching the dailies. So, I was trying to whisper in his ear, and that was probably the most challenging. But the edit is always it's not always such a relief. It was actually very difficult as well. Yeah, really, really hard.
Pacing is so important for this, like those emotional beats and giving them their space and moving it along because it's not too long. Like that is so important when a story is like this.
Yeah,
I think also is one of the great things that we have. What's great for me to have a producer who's an experienced director themselves, and Alicia has a really great eye for performance and a really great instinct for, like, that would be her kind of background in a way, would be, although she says she's not an actor, she was a brilliant actor. So that's a rare thing as a producer. Like, lots of producers have lots of opinions about performing on it, but like to really see it and understand and kind of, so yeah, we and sometimes also we disagreed about it. We often disagree about stuff because you're going, for me it's like you're also going, I'm aware of the entire sort of arc of things, and sometimes you're seeing things in out of context and all the rest. But it was, and with these performances as well, particularly, I had to believe that like, for example, I will put it this way, Kevin's role is he hasn't a huge amount of dialogue for what he does. It's a presence role. He has to be present. So that takes, there's a bit of a risk with that, because it's easier to see performance when they're speaking and, but you're seeing it isolated kind of just, being is, but I felt it was there, but I felt it at the time. Well, I think it's really important. Like, I try not to be it's really hard not to get caught up in monitors and all this, but you're trying to be there for the actor and be their first audience. And so, I always kind of use that parameter. Did I feel it at the time? Did I feel it? And just believe that. And touch wood now, everyone seems to think the performances are great. So, but that was certainly a conversation all the way through. Like, are we getting the right sort of tone and intensity and pacing and all that stuff, But what's brilliant is that I totally trusted Alicia's opinion, so if she has the kind of thing of like, Michael, I think, are you keeping an eye out for that? It's always, I know where it's coming. I know it's coming from a really good place that I need to sort of, have I covered myself for that? Yeah.
That's really
But and the same goes through with the post side of things, having her perspective and having that sort of other distant who's really involved and knows everything, but also has that little bit of more distance. Yeah. So but it doesn't mean we don't battle about stuff as well.
But like it was so long. I have like about 1,000 more questions, but we're come to the hour, and I'll let you guys go because it's so fascinating. It's such a kind of beautiful film visually. It's
Thank
such
you.
a powerful film. The performances, like we should on the ball because I think there was so many characters and that depth that bounced from one to another so consistently, and there's so much sort of beauty in it to watch it. I think it really celebrates um probably in a time post-COVID when things are sort of ramped up tension-wise and in terms of mental health, like there is just that message in it that I do think is important to watch right now. And are you guys looking forward to it finally being out, getting its release?
Absolutely. We've been around the world with it, to date with festivals, and we were always so gutted not being able to get a release when we've had the audiences come up to us. We've had the discussions, we've seen how they've reacted to it. So to finally know that that's not all just going to remain there in that ether, that it's going to be spread is really exciting.
Yeah, I think there was a surreal thing about it. Like it felt so strange that we were winning audience awards, we're getting this incredible response from audiences, and we were like, but no one seemed to want it in Ireland, and we're like, okay, strange. And I think what you're saying there is exactly the point about the post-COVID. I think when it first came out after COVID, it was a little too raw for that moment. Maybe is the way. I think the world needed the Colin Kuhn kind of film, which is like a hug. It's a beautiful film, but it's a hug, of a film, and where this is not a punch in the face, but it's not a hug. So, but it's hopefully there's hope and there's empathy and there's catharsis, but it's definitely a different type of film. And I think maybe it's just had its time now. I suppose I hope touch wood, but it was very strange to know that you've made something you were proud of and you put your heart and soul into, and then just have this sort of weird silence where you're going. But yeah, people who saw it would be going, "God, you're amazing! Your film's amazing, and I love it." It was sometimes you'd go like, do we exist in the world anymore? Are we dreaming? Because after the COVID as well, everything was so weird anyway. So so it just feels like, thank God the world is back on its some sort of axis again for us, which is great.
Brilliant. So it's in cinemas today?
No, Friday.
No, today is Friday. It's in cinemas.
Let's do that
today.
again.
So everyone go out and get your
Let's
tickets.
do that again.
It's a
Yes.
fabulous film. Support Irish cinema, and again, just plan your next holiday in West Cork.
Absolutely. Yeah, go in May into June. August, you pay 3 times as much. And the weather's better in May and June.
That's the insider tip. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Great, guys. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for listening. So if you want to catch more podcasts, make sure to like and review and give us a follow. And you can subscribe to our newsletter now on filmireland.ie.